All right, I don't know how this never happened before. 13 years with this podcast have never had this man on. LL Cool J, it's a
What's up, man?
pleasure.
Thank you, man.
Um,
Thanks for having me.
Last year was the 35th anniversary of you signing with Def Jam. I wrote down some of the things that happened that year. We had the first Bird Magic finals. We
Wow.
had the '84 Olympics. We had the Purple Rain, Born in the USA, Hearns Hagler, The Terminator, Miami Vice, Run DMC, Beverly Hills Cop, so much more. What do you remember about 1984?
Um, I just remember being a little kid with a dream. You know what I'm saying? Like a dream of, you know, taking my career to another level and allowing my voice to be heard. That was the main thing. Like wanting to hear my voice, like wanting to not be a guy who just like dissolved and turned invisible in the hood. You know what I mean? Like, when you're growing up in the hood, you feel invisible. You know what I'm saying? Like you feel like the world doesn't see you. At least that can be the effect. You know what I'm saying? You have to respond to that a certain way, which isn't easy. But the effects are like the world doesn't see you. So that was the goal for me, to just not disappear, to let my voice be heard. You know what I'm saying?
What's the biggest difference for you, America in 2020 versus America in 1984?
Um, Social media. Pretty much everything else is basically the same. The only difference is a lot of things have been heightened because of social media. A lot of the things you see that would occur on a daily basis are now happening online. The bridge to dreams has changed. Like whereas before maybe it was like an off-road trail to your dreams, now there are more bridges and tunnels and roads and highways and parkways and freeways to get to your dream. But it's still just as difficult. You know what I mean? It's still just as challenging.
What's your role? Yeah, I mean, you have such a signature voice. What's your role with the state America's in right now?
I think that I have to stand up for my people, right? I don't want to see, unarmed black men being killed for no reason. I don't want to see people, um, you know, being put in that position. You know what I'm saying? I think most of America is better than that. And I think you have a loud group of, racists who are making it very difficult because they have leverage.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And some of the racists who have leverage are really affecting the soul of this country in a bad way. And I think that, that morale issue is something that we really have to think about, because, the stock market could be at 40,000, but if the morale's in the toilet, what good does that do?
Right. My friend Jalen Rose, who I think you know as well.
Absolutely.
He he was on ESPN a couple weeks ago talking about this country that, especially the last 35 years with music and sports,
Hmm.
idolizes so many different black celebrities.
Hmm.
And yet there's this dichotomy on the other side where they don't seem to care about, the rights of some of these people and how they're being treated and all this stuff and how frustrating that is. Have you
Who doesn't care? Who doesn't care?
well, the people like what happened with George Floyd recently,
Hmm.
where, here's another example coming on top of a couple other incidents, and this happens, and then finally people step up
Oh, but
and
you know what? I think that that's activation energy, right? Like that fuse was lit,
yeah,
many years ago, and I think the bomb finally went off because this was it's very difficult. Empathy. A lot of people empathize, but it's very difficult for them to put themselves in people's shoes if they never experienced something.
yeah,
If you've never been pulled over by the police and felt like your life was in danger, and you always felt like as a little girl or a little boy, you could go up to Mr. Officer and ask him for directions without getting asked for ID, then it's kind of difficult to to see somebody in that light. But now what you've seen is people have seen these bad cops and what they're capable of. And not only do they see what happened to George Floyd, but now they're seeing how people are dealing with the demonstrations. So, I think that that's the issue. I think that, empathy has a lot to do with that. Empathy and implicit bias, right? because
Right.
implicit bias can 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 subconsciously or unconsciously stop someone from uh, responding the way that we would hope they would to certain situations because they don't realize they have bias. That's why you'll hear people say silence equals violence. You know what I mean? Because, there's a certain point when you got to step up. Like right now, I have to step up. You
Yep.
know, I have no choice. I have millions of people who follow me and listen to me. And I'm not going to leave them emotionally and spiritually abandoned at a time like this, because then that means that I'm not a real man. That just means that I'm a weasel that's only caring about a couple of dollars.
When you were a kid, especially as you're trying to figure out what your voice was musically, what songs and what artists and what people who resonated with you, who shaped what you eventually became?
Who shaped what I eventually became is funny. It was all the early hip hop groups. I mean, that's why, Rock the Bells is what it is. You know what I'm saying? That's why I created this platform, because it was the Treacherous Three and the Crash Crew and Africa Bambaataa and the Zulu Nation and the Fearless Four and you know the Cold Crush Brothers and the Fantastic Romantic Five, all these groups that most people listening to this podcast never heard of, right? And then for the core hardcore hip hop fans have though. But then, and then came the Run DMCs and the rest of the guys that came after that. So that's the thing, for me, that really shaped and molded me. And then you had artists like Rick James and, Michael Jackson and Prince and all of those other artists that were just part of the collective zeitgeist. So they affected me in just on some levels. But from a hip hop standpoint, it was all the founders. You know what I mean?
Do you when you look back at that generation, it reminds me a little bit of the NBA, the first, I don't know, 25, 30 years. And
Mm.
even stuff like growing up, knowing about Dr. J.
Mm-hmm.
He's not on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like he'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost like the myth of it and just what you heard and hearsay and then some clips and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then it paves the way for Bird and Magic and eventually Jordan. I
Mm-hmm.
think all the stuff that happened in the '80s paved the way for how it blows up in the '90s.
Oh, 100%.
You must feel some sort of ownership over that whole thing, right?
Well, I do, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. Look, the reason why I created Rock the Bells, the reason why I created this platform, the whole idea behind it is the fact that there wasn't a preeminent global voice for classic and the classic hip hop and the classic hip hop community, right? I wanted
Yep.
a place where you could go learn the equivalent of the Dr. J story. You could learn the equivalent of the Bird, Magic story. You can learn the equivalent of all of that, metaphorically speaking, on Rock the Bells. That's why, and also what was important to me is, look, Generation X is forgotten. It's almost like we're like the lost middle child, right? It's either okay boomer or
Yeah.
millennial. Obviously, we can relate as Gen X to Gen Z because most of us, Gen X's, Gen Z are kids for a lot of us, right? For many of us. Some have millennials, of course, but a lot of us have Gen Z kids. So it's kind of like we're in this situation where it's like, I said, you know what? I did the channel, I did the radio station, and I started discovering like, wow, like, yo, this is a real thing. Like, this audience, this customer, this generation feels like they're missing out on something. They love this culture. And a lot of them want to learn even more about it. Some of them aren't day one fans, but they grew up with it casually and they would love to be immersed in it. They would love to be like a fly on the wall and go deep, take a deep dive into classic and timeless hip hop culture. So what I said was, you know what? I'm going to build a platform that looks at the culture through a modern lens and really lift up these artists. Why can't artists like, Rakim or Nas be celebrated the same way Bob Dylan is? It's just a matter of someone taking ownership. It's a matter of someone caring enough about it. Because you got to remember, classic hip hop for Generation X, that's like our classic rock for the baby boomers.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So classic hip hop for us, like, Run DMC and Eric B. and Rakim and Public Enemy are our Rolling Stones and our, you know what I mean? That's our version of that. So I felt like we had to have a place where people could really delve into the entire ecosystem. So it's not just about rap music per se. It's about the entire culture.
Yeah.
I want you to be able to buy you can buy books there. You know, hip hop is big on hustling, big on strategy. So you can have a Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the Art of War is available there in books. Hip hop is a lot about fashion, but you can get everything from, you know, affordable, you know, everyday items to like luxury premium brands. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what hip hop is. It goes from the corners to the private jets, right? Every rap artist is not on the cover of Forbes. You know,
Yeah.
some guys are just making it. So it really has that bandwidth. And I think by creating this platform, I'm also most importantly lifting up, you know, the people that have ownership in the platform. I'm lifting up Run DMC. I'm lifting up Eric B. and Rakim. I'm lifting up Crazy Legs, the B-boy and breaker, Risk, the graffiti artist, Fab Five Freddy, who took, you know, hip hop from uptown and brought it downtown. You know, there is no Blondie rapping on on Rapture without Fab Five Freddy. You know, there is no Basquiat in the Blondie video on behind the turntables if Fab Five Freddy doesn't bring Basquiat to the video shoot because Grandmaster Flash didn't show up. So these are the things and the stories that you hear about. Roxanne Shante having ownership, Big Daddy Kane having ownership. And the reason why I gave and wanted to make sure that not only did I have strategic investors who put money into the platform, but I wanted to make sure that the people who really pioneered the game finally had an opportunity to capture some value. So guess what? It's when you support rockthebells.com and you buy something, yes, we do affiliate deals. We have deals with Amazon, deals with different people for sure. But when you spend money on rockthebells.com for the first time, the actual pioneers who actually helped pave the way for the culture are actually capturing some of that value. So it's the equivalent of Dr. J finally, you know what I'm saying, getting part of the TV deals.
Right.
Because he helped build the league.
I think that classic rock example is a really good point.
Yeah,
because
go ahead.
Well, it's just like when that Sirius channel. What year did that happen?
I did Rock the Bells on Sirius XM channel 43. We did it about 2 years ago.
Yeah, and there was another channel that they had before that, but I always liked Sirius does a good job sometimes with eras. And you're just like, I'm going to this era. And as my son really started getting this stuff, that was one of the channels, we were listening to. And he thinks like basically rap started with Tupac and Biggie and all those guys in it. But then he eventually learned that no, actually there was another 15 years before those guys.
Exactly.
This was all happening.
And that's the point, right? The point is I want to make sure that 200 or 300 years from now, people get the story right. This podcast is going to play way beyond us. And it's like,
right.
So you got to make sure that the narrative is right. I want your son, when your son looks at it, Tupac and Biggie are two of our greatest artists. But he should also know about Big Daddy Kane and Rakim and know about Grandmaster Caz and really know, be smart and know the history. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what really helped was the MJ documentary.
There you go.
And Jason Hare, who directed it, who I actually did a project with before that, he really tried to be era specific, where he's showing the footage and trying to get the corresponding song for that thing. And not only did it really work, but it was a fun trip down memory lane. And you really think like the music and sports in a lot of ways were so aligned as that went, especially in the 80s with the NBA, because the NBA was still, it's romanticized now, but they weren't even showing live finals games fully until 1984. And that was right when everything's taken off for music and hip hop.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, he connected with the Gen X and he connected with people who have that OG mindset. My song, I'm Bad. I licensed I'm Bad for MJ's, for the Last Dance, for the 63-point game in Boston. I mean, it's unbelievable how great classic hip hop can be. And
right.
I think that, and what we've finally broken through, the barrier that I believe that Rock the Bells has broken and that I've, helped to overcome is this idea of relevance. Because for a few minutes, about 5 to maybe 8 years ago, it just felt like if you were a hip hop artist, but you weren't at the top of today's charts, you didn't mean anything. you were kind of treated like a pop, like a boy band, right? Like
Yeah.
no disrespect to the boy bands, but some of them kind of get marginalized a little bit on certain levels. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're the hot thing of the moment. But as soon as you turn 35, all of a sudden it's like whatever, unless you're JT. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like I felt like that was the road that hip hop was going down, and I didn't want to see that happen because we have some really great artists and some truly great, poets in the game, and I believe they should be celebrated.
Well, other than a ton of hits and a ton of successful albums, you were would you say you were the first person in a rap beef? Do you think
Oh
you
no,
were
I wasn't the first.
like a major one, I'm saying. Like one that was publicly dissected in a real way. The one with Kool Moe Dee.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. I think that was. I mean, Kumo D had a thing with Busy B before that, and the Cold Crush had things they against the Fantastic Five, Fantastic Romantic Five, and there was a lot of beats. I mean, beefs that went back and forth. But yeah, me and Mo D was definitely heavily publicized at the time. It was probably the first modern era. You know what I'm saying? Classic, timeless hip hop beef. And
Did did you know in the moment that this was actually weirdly helpful to both of you?
No, no. I mean, when you look at history, it's like, all of the great kings feel like they have to have a victory in battle in order to secure their name and have a shot at glory, right? So, there's that. But no, I was just, a little kid that wanted to defend his hip hop territory, so to speak, in my reputation as an MC, and
Right.
as a real guy of the culture. No different from two guitar players just playing solos back and forth because they're just not having it. Like they're
Right.
on stage and they're going crazy. You know what I mean? It's no different.
As you watch that kind of, blow up in the 90s, did you feel like this was headed toward and then all of a sudden, Tupac dies, Biggie dies. Did you feel like, "Oh shit, this is actually going in a direction we're going too far now?"
I see what you're saying. It's interesting. I would say this. I would say that I think the media at the time, you know, uh, media that was covering hip hop at the time just made a decision that beef sells, kind of like sex. So I think that because of that, it kind of attached to it was attached to the hip hop boat like barnacles. You know what I'm saying? They kind
That
of just
makes sense.
threw a
Yeah.
magnet on hip hop's refrigerator and said beef is the thing. That wasn't really about hip hop. That was more about two guys that had a problem with each other.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And they happen
Yeah.
to be hip hop artists. Like so, it's a really interesting thing. The ability to make finer distinctions. If two politicians get in a fight in the elevator because one of the guys said something to the other guy's wife that he didn't like, is that politics? I don't know. Could be. They're
Right.
politicians. Doesn't have to be. Would we treat it like it's political? Yes, probably. So I think that Pac and Big just had problems as individuals, and then hip hop kind of got caught up in that because the media found an angle that was interesting, right? Like when you find angles that are interesting and you run with them, you run with that narrative. That's what happens. And I think at the time, Vibe magazine was kind of probably really pushing that heavy. You know what I mean?
What's your looking back all these years later, what's the album you're the most proud of?
You know what? I'm proud of my body of work. Like, look, my favorite song is "Doing It," and I thought that my second album, "Bigger and Deffer," was a real victory for me because it was my sophomore album, and I had to do the project without Rick Rubin, and didn't know what was going to happen, and it was really huge and big, and so that was a victory for me. But I'm excited about my body of work, and I think the body of work. Look, that's the whole point of this whole thing, right? Like and I keep going back to Rock the Bells, but I have to. The whole point of this is that I want to celebrate classic hip hop culture as a genre, as a movement, you know what I'm saying, as an ecosystem, and really lift it up and give the whole world a way in. You know what I'm saying? And teach people, you know what I'm saying? And let them learn and let them be excited. So, it's always about the collective for me at this point. At this point.
So you and I are natural enemies because you're a Yankees fan or a Lakers fan.
Yeah, hilarious. I'm
a Boston fan, so we're just designed not to like each other.
Okay. I can make the distinction. We can still have a beer. It's all good.
But the Lakers, there was a story a couple months ago that you talked Kobe out of doing a gangster rap album. Can you explain what the hell happened with that? Because I was stunned by that.
Yeah, I had a television show in the house, and it was a sitcom I did with Debbie.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, by Quincy Jones and David Salzman.
Who are you in the Raiders?
I was a former
Raider, yeah.
Marrying him, yeah. So Kobe and Derek Fisher, when Kobe was a rookie, he came on the show, and they did a guest appearance. You can find the footage. It's funny. We had a great time. We was talking crazy. It was hilarious. But during the course of filming, he was like, "Yo, I want to let you hear my album. I did some music, blah blah blah." So we go out and sit in this car, and he's playing these gangster rap records, right? Now you got to remember, this is probably 90. What was that? What was it? 96?
97 range.
97, yeah, like 97, right? So I had started in 84. You know what I'm saying? So I've been in the game a while at this point.
Yeah.
Right? So, I'm sitting there and I'm listening to these records, and it's MF this and F that, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, yo, I said, yo, Cole, man, this ain't what you need to be doing, baby. Like, what you mean? I said, listen, man. I said, you're an athlete, man. I said, I'm a rapper. I can say all that, man, but that's not, that's not, the rules are different for you. At that point, it was different. See, now with social media, you couldn't, the gatekeepers probably wouldn't have the same controls that they used to have. But at that time, if he would have said something out of pocket, that could have really hurt his career in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like, people often compare Jordan to LeBron in that regard, but what they don't realize is the context of the times. There were certain things that Mike probably wouldn't have been able to say that would have really went left for him.
Yeah.
If he said some of the things that LeBron says. It was just a really different time. It doesn't mean that he couldn't have had the courage to say it, but at the same time, you see what happened with Ali's career. You see what happened with the, different civil rights leaders over the years when they spoke out. Doesn't mean that it's not worth speaking out. I'm just saying it was a different time. So I just was telling Cole, like, yo, that gangster, that's not what you want to do. And, ultimately, it seems like he took my advice. The album never came out. You know what I mean? And when you look at it, and then I remember, like, Allen Iverson, who's an unbelievable player who I love, he had dropped some music, and I remember that there was a big firestorm around that. And
Stern got mad. Yeah, David Stern was pissed.
This is what I'm saying. So, AI is one of my favorites. But I'm just saying, like, I told Kobe, like, that's not going. And he was like, and he kind of acknowledged, but then it never came out. So I guess he listened.
That was such a fascinating decade for the league because, you had in the Fab Five in college basketball. They're pushing the envelope. Then in the NBA, Iverson shows up. He's completely different kind of superstar than the league ever had. And there's a certain demographic of NBA fan who is like, what's going on here? Wait,
that goes back to implicit bias, right?
Yeah.
You don't think you feel something, but then when you see a black guy with a do-rag on or a hoodie on, you associate that with a certain type of behavior, and it's not the case. You know what I'm saying? I don't dress any different than, guys I grew up with. Some of my, I might have a couple of shirts that cost a little more here and there, but, it is what it is. Like, AI was dressing like any kid on the street. But if you don't understand those kids and the mindset, then you're judging. He was judged wrong, I think. You know what I'm saying?
Agree.
You should be able to dress the way you want to dress. I understand that, look, dress codes and all that, I get it. But AI wasn't Like you just have some people who don't understand that just because a black man has a do-rag on or some gold chains, that doesn't mean he's a gangbanger. You know what I
Right.
mean? You know, it's
So
kind of like it's like that little joke that, you know, white guys have a tendency to make when you take pictures of them. You know, oh, is that a gang sign? You know, they, you know, it's like that little joke. It's like, you feel
right.
me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure that's why Kobe felt like I got to make this album. Like it was just a weird time for the league. You
Well,
were,
he probably was just inspired to make it, like, because
yeah,
it's a truth in his life. But the issue is that, you know, we have to have the ability, I think, to understand people have different truths.
yeah.
And you have to be able to accept a person's truth. And that doesn't, just because you have a, baseball hat on backwards or a gold chain doesn't mean that, you out to hurt people. You know what I mean?
Were you friends with him,
With who?
Kobe?
We were associates. We didn't hang out on a regular basis like that. No, I did see
Yeah.
him. The last time I saw him was at, may he rest in peace, in power, was at the Michelle Obama thing that she did at the Staples Center when she was
Yeah.
the lecture thing. I saw him about a book, and I saw him in the basement, and we talked about getting together and going to dinner and, stuff like that. But, that didn't happen. But, that was a tremendous loss. I mean, he was one of my favorites ever. You know what I mean? I definitely shed a tear on that day. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really affected me. You know what I mean?
Who do you have for greatest Laker of all time?
Laker?
Yeah, Laker.
Wow.
And it can't just be somebody who passed through the team but happened to be also great in his career. It has to be like, who is the greatest Laker?
I gotta say, in terms of just overall impact, I would probably have to give that to Magic.
Me too.
You know what I'm saying? I would have to give that to Magic. But I tell you, he's right there. But
Yeah.
the difference is that Magic not only did what he did with 5 rings, but he actually, I mean, you could argue that Kareem did it to a certain extent, but Magic really made the Lakers brand. Like he Showtime really took him worthy, but he really made that brand what it is. So I would only because he made the brand what it is, I would have to give it to Magic.
So I worked with him one year on NBA Countdown, which was really fun. Got to know him a little bit. You
Mhm.
know him. One of my favorite Magic things is every summer he goes away on these crazy trips. And then he does social media about it, Instagram, and I'm on this island in Italy and all this. You've been on this trip. You've
Oh, yeah.
gone.
100%. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was the best trip in the world. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of positive energy, a lot of positive talks. Very uplifting.
Sam Jackson, a lot of Sam Jackson.
Well, no, Sam came later. He went later. But with me, I mean, we had, Rodney Peete was out there, and Magic, and, my man Kevin Lyles and Frank Cooper, and just, it was unbelievable, man. The vibe, the energy, it was amazing. It was magical. You know what I mean?
In a gigantic boat.
Yeah, we had a big boat and all that. But, listen, man, I know, look, it's all relative, right? Like, you can have look, I've been on the biggest jets and all that, and I've also been in the barbershop. And guess what? When you laugh, and when you happy, you happy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it wasn't really about like, yo, we want a boat and we want to like, stunt on people or rub it in people's faces. It was more about just we live in a world now where, we just, like home videos. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and it was just fun and dope and, it was crazy. You know what I'm saying? It was like a living like James Bond for, a month or something. It was, you know what I mean? And that's cool, right? Like, I'm a kid, came from Queens. I'm from the hood. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, what kid who wouldn't want to do that, right? Like, I mean, we want to live our best lives, right? And that's what it's about. So, yeah, I had a ball with it, no doubt.
What was the best Laker game you ever went to?
Best Laker game?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, I don't even think I could think of it that way. I think the most memorable Laker game for me is completely separate from what anybody would think. It was a game when Kobe was still a 6th man and they were pulling him out of the game really quickly. Like he would go in, he would get some really quick minutes and they would pull him out. And one time they pulled him out and he was getting ready to start beefing with the coach. And I looked at him and I was like, he was like, and he he went and sat down. And it's so funny to me because it went from me kind of being like his big brother mentor to like
Yeah.
sitting next to him on the bench, and he would like look straight ahead, when he doesn't talk to anybody. And it was like I just remember saying to myself, like, wow, like, yo, he really turned into a grown man and a champion. Because when I met him, he was a little kid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. He was 17 when he got drafted.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Um,
And the
all right.
tattoo, like the way, when he did the tattoo, that was like, for me, that was like, just seeing the similarities, because most people don't notice that. But when you think about the similarities, you know what I'm saying? And you think about like, I just like was watching him and just, he really impressed me as a human being. Like watching him grow to become the champion he became, the man he became, the father he became, the athlete he became. Like, I'm not became, but the champion athlete that he became was just unbelievable.
2 movie questions for you.
Yo,
Halloween H2O or Deep Blue Sea?
Deep Blue Sea, no doubt about it. Love Jamie Lee Curtis, all good. We ate barbecue together on the set, but Deep Blue Sea is hilarious, man. You ate my bird and all that. Like, look, I try to have fun with the career, try to, keep it grounded, of course, keep my feet on the ground, maintain my mental dexterity and strength. But yeah, Deep Blue Sea was dope.
That's actually gained steam as a cult cable classic. It's on all the time, which means people are watching it because they wouldn't show it if people weren't actually watching it. But it's got a great death scene. I won't spoil it if somebody hasn't seen it yet, but there's a shocking death scene right in the middle. That's like, oh my God, what just happened? But it's a good one.
Yeah.
We do this podcast on the Ringer called The Rewatchables, where we break down movies that we've seen a million times. We did one of the first ones we did was Any Given Sunday.
Okay.
Which I know you've been asked about a million times. And even though, Oliver Stone, he gets a little carried away with some of the cuts and whatever, I still think there's so many good things in that movie and really a classic Pacino performance too. But then when one of the parts of the podcast is we try to figure out, we call it half-assed internet research. What's real, what's not real about the stuff in the movie. There's so many different versions of whatever happened with you and Jamie Foxx. Even like, wait, because you guys definitely had a fight. Did you have a fight on the sideline or in the locker room?
No, we had a fight on the sideline, and at the time, I was method acting and really in character and kind of being aggressive with Jamie in the scenes, but not trying to hurt him, but just like hitting the shoulder pads and talking. And he said, "Look, man," he said, for whatever reason, I think he thought, Jamie thought that he thought that I was being serious or something, but I was acting.
Yeah.
And, I guess for what he got ticked off and thought it was, a good idea to punch me in my face. You know what I mean? And I disagreed.
So that was it. You started going at it, but were they filming or was it rehearsal?
I disagreed wholeheartedly.
Did they put it in the movie, or they put in a slice of it, or they kept that out?
Some of the like back and forth maybe, but none of the real stuff, because the real stuff cleared the whole sidelines because it was,
Oh, so it was bad. It was like a brawl.
While it lasted.
Oh, so you won. Was it a 10-8 round or a 10-9 round?
Yo, Larry, look, I got love for Jamie. I ain't gonna do that to him now, man.
Well, man. you guys are friends now.
It was a tie. It was a tie.
You guys are friends now.
No question.
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to get up here and I don't want to blame him out like that. It's all love. He punched me. Then it was a tie.
And then in the locker room, your characters had another fight, but that one was not a real. That was a movie fight, not a. Yeah.
Definitely not. Okay. I think the craziest thing about that thing was my character Julian, I believe his name. Was he had this thing where he was sniffing cocaine. I had this scene where I was supposed to be sniffing cocaine, and when they do that, they use antihistamine, instead of cocaine.
Yeah.
But if you sniff enough antihistamine, you still
you're still feeling it.
Oliver had me like. It's like, we did like 30 takes of this shit. I'm sniffing antihistamine. Oliver, you killing me, bro. Like this dude is like, Oliver is hilarious, man.
What running back did you model your character after? Did you study NFL running? Were you more Emmitt Smith? Was it?
No, I think it was.
Marshall Faulk?
No, it was more. Well, you're thinking about size and all that, but well, not even size. You're just thinking about style. But the guy, my favorite was actually Tony Dorsett. That's why I
Oh,
wore. That's why I wore 33.
okay.
I wore 33 because of Tony Dorsett, and we got to play in Dallas in the stadium. In there at that time, that was unbelievable. That the Dallas Stadium at the time, and so yeah, it was more Dorsett.
What do you remember about Pacino?
Uh, really, really brilliant, really smart. Hung out with him, went over his house. Um, you know, we watched the Riddick Bowe. I mean, we watched the. I want to say, is it Riddick Bowe and Evander 3, or was it Lennox and Evander? I want to say it was Bowe. It was one of those
I bet it
fights.
was Bo Holyfield 3. Yeah,
It was Bowe
that makes sense.
either 2 or 3, one or the other.
Yeah.
And we watched that at his house. It was
You watch a pay-per-view at Pacino's house?
yeah. We hung out, watched the fight and all that.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's
it
like
was great.
he's like, LL, want to see if you want to come over.
No,
I'm
no,
trying to do a
no,
Pacino.
Ollie, he's talking to Oliver Stone. He's like, Ollie, you might like it. And Oliver's like, no, don't direct yourself. Like, Ollie, you might like what I do. Yeah, don't direct yourself. Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was crazy. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot of fun, though, man. A lot of fun.
Before we go, I have to ask you one NICS LA question.
All right.
My
And see,
dad, my dad,
yeah,
huge fan.
yeah.
Huge fan. He's still recovering from he says Granger's death, but the real guy, Miguel Ferrer,
Yeah.
he died in real life. But his question for you was, how did that affect the show?
Well, Granger, Miguel, I always called him the coolest guy I ever met in my life. I mean, this guy, his voice, his demeanor, he was so cool, man. Like, I don't think I've ever met somebody that was just that, like such a charming, cool dude. Like it was so funny. I remember like me, I'm not great with horses. Like, nobody's perfect, right? Like I get around them horses. I don't really feel comfortable. I don't really like horses like that.
Yeah.
Riding them, I'm talking about. I don't mind being around them and feeding them and playing with them and all that, but I'm talking about riding them. And we out there shooting the scene. We're supposed to be in Afghanistan. Miguel comes riding up on his horse. He's, you know what I mean? Like he was just like, it was just unbelievable. He was one of the best. He was one of the best. You know what I'm saying? Like for real. So your dad is right to say that, to put that much, on his contribution to the show, because he brought a lot to the table. Miguel was real special. Real special.
How many seasons for you at that show?
We've done 11 seasons so far. Yeah.
Did you
11.
ever think in a million years when you took that job, you'd be like, hey, 11 years later,
No, I figured it
still
lasted.
going?
I figured it would be 2 years and, just on to something else. I had no idea. I zero idea. You know what I'm saying?
And those are like the best gigs to get for acting, right? Because you're in, everything is set perfectly. It just keeps going and going. You have more leverage every year as the show keeps staying successful.
Yeah, but you can never know what's going to work and what's not going to work, right? You don't know. So in hindsight, it may appear like that, but you don't know. You
Yeah.
know, does a basketball player know that they're going to stay healthy for 12, 15, 18, 19 seasons? Does Vince Carter know that he's going to, his body's going to be able to handle that? It kind of just unfolds, right? And you have to deal with things in the moment.
Yeah.
But the one thing I do is I just try to approach, this whole thing with humility, you know what I'm saying? And, and also just keep building, you know what I'm saying? And keep moving forward.
All right. Last question. You have to answer. You can't sneak out of this one because we're coming up the heels of The Last Dance and a
Okay.
whole goat conversation.
Right.
Who's the GOAT rapper? You can take as long as you want for this.
Yeah, I understand the question, but the problem is that it's really subjective because anybody you name stood on the shoulders of someone else. So it's almost like
Yeah, but you could say that about Jordan, right?
you could say that about everybody, but my thing is that it I think greatness is very subjective, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I really do. I think, because you were inspired by others. No matter what it is, you were inspired and learned from others. So it's like, I think it's more about who had the greatest impact on your life personally.
Right.
I think greatness, the real metric is it's not about greatest basketball player, it's about greatest impact on a certain fan's life. That's what we're really debating. What we're really debating is who had the greatest impact on your life in a specific field. That's why I came up with the term GOAT. I took Earl the GOAT, Man of GOAT, who was a famous street basketball player. I took Greatest of All Times by Muhammad Ali, and I formed an acronym, GOAT, and made the album GOAT and dropped it in 2000. And that's where the whole GOAT came from. The whole term came from. So
wait a second. How did I not know that? I knew you had album name, but I didn't know that you actually created the acronym.
Yeah, but I mean, most people don't know because it took on a life of its own.
Yeah, I just assumed it was there for 50 years.
Nah, you can, we can fact check that. You can fact check that on every search engine in the world.
Honestly, that's really impressive. That's one of the most impressive acronym inventions.
It worked out. It went well it entered the lexicon for sure.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's like, so when I said I was the GOAT, I was just talking like, yo, I'm the GOAT. Like, I feel like I'm the greatest of all time, period. Now it's up to you to feel like that for you. I'm clear that I didn't have the greatest impact on every hip hop fan because every hip hop fan was impacted, felt the impact of different artists. Different fans feel the impacts of different artists, different athletes, different journalists, different writers, different authors, but I'm just glad that, I was able to say, yo, I was able to set the standard for the world. I was able to set the standard by saying, yo, I'm the GOAT, and everybody. So by creating that, setting that standard, I think, by taking that, what Ali said, and taking Earl the Man of GOAT and putting those two things together, setting that standard, it just became something. So, I'm gonna go with LL Cool J because I coined the phrase.
I think you win that one. Yeah. I think, it's funny. It's like acting because it's really hard to say who's the greatest actor of all time. In sports, we can at least use championships and stats, and we can add all these other things. And in acting, you can't.
You know why you can't use championships and stats, even though everybody does? I'm very clear, but because they don't measure impact. You tell a kid who thinks LeBron is the GOAT that he's not the GOAT because he went to 8 championships, et cetera, and only won a certain amount or whatever. He's not trying to hear that. Because the way LeBron impacted his life is crazy. So the GOAT is a measurement of impact. It's not about how many records you sold. It's not about how many times you was at the top of the charts. It's not even about how many rings you got. It's the impact that you've had on people. So when we look at The Last Dance, what do you remember? You're not really thinking about the rings. The thing that jumps off the screen at you when you're watching the documentary is his impact. You're looking at Michael Jordan's impact on the world. That's how greatness is measured. It's measured by impact. You can't.
Well, and also the experience of seeing him in person, which I thought it did a good job of.
Exactly.
Because that was, out of all the guys I ever saw, he was the one that just owned the room, no matter 20,000 people.
Monster. Absolute
own the
monster.
room.
You know what I'm saying?
There's nobody like him.
Right.
Wow. I can't believe you came up with, I can't believe I didn't know that. I feel like such an idiot. I thought that had been around since, like, I don't know, Joe DiMaggio or something.
Nah, definitely not.
Well, amazing. All right, rockthebells.com.
Yeah,
you're doing good stuff. Yeah, I like the whole mindset behind it. It's really cool.
Yeah, like I said, as far as rockthebells.com is concerned, people, classic timeless hip hop, Generation X, strictly OG mindset. You know what I'm saying? It's a space where fans can celebrate the culture in a big way. You can listen to the music. You can see exclusive audio and video. We have all the things associated with classic hip hop. It's a whole ecosystem. So if you're in that mindset and you really want to know what hip hop is about for real, you go to rockthebells.com. You know what I'm saying? Straight up.
This was great. I really enjoyed it. Good seeing you. Thank you.
No doubt. I appreciate you, baby. Love. One.